Have you ever noticed there are days when you simply can't stand anyone anymore? When a trivial conversation about the weather feels like an invisible vampire sucking your energy dry? When you'd rather be alone than have to smile politely while someone dumps meaningless small talk in your face? And then comes that irritating voice, whether your own or from those around you, whispering, "You're antisocial. There's something wrong with you." But what if I told you that this exhaustion with people isn't a flaw, isn't coldness, isn't pathology? What you're about to discover will turn upside down everything they made you believe about being sociable. There's a neurological, psychological, and even evolutionary reason why you get tired of people. And it's deeper and more powerful than any simplistic label they tried to stick on you. Brace yourself, because after this video, you'll never feel guilty again for needing silence. Your brain isn't lazy, it's the opposite of lazy. While most people glide through conversations on autopilot, nodding at the right moments and laughing at predictable jokes, your neural pathways are running a marathon. You're not just hearing words, you're decoding tone, analyzing body language, detecting micro-expressions that flash across faces for milliseconds, cross-referencing statements with past behaviors, predicting where the conversation might go, and simultaneously monitoring your own reactions to make sure you're responding appropriately. It's exhausting, and it's real. Neuroscience calls this sensory processing sensitivity. About 15 to 20% of the population has a nervous system wired to process information more deeply. It's not a disorder. It's a trait. Your brain catches subtleties that others miss entirely. The shift in someone's voice when they're hiding disappointment. The tension in a room that nobody acknowledges. The contradiction between what people say and what their eyes reveal. Think about the last social gathering you attended. While others seemed energized by the noise and chaos, you felt drained within an hour. That's because your brain was working overtime, processing layers of social data that most people don't even register. Every conversation demanded focus. Every interaction required interpretation. There was no autopilot option for you. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's executive control center, was firing constantly, managing emotions, suppressing inappropriate responses, calculating social risks, and trying to navigate the unwritten rules of human interaction. Meanwhile, your amygdala, the emotional processing hub, was on high alert, scanning for threats and evaluating every social cue for safety and authenticity. This isn't weakness, it's intensity. But here's what nobody tells you. This processing depth comes with a biological cost. Your brain consumes more glucose when processing complex social information. Your nervous system releases more cortisol during prolonged social exposure. You're literally burning more fuel than someone whose brain processes social interaction at surface level. And when the fuel runs out? Shutdown. Irritability. The desperate need to escape. You're not being dramatic. You're not inventing excuses. Your body is telling you the truth that society refuses to acknowledge. Not all brains are built for constant social stimulation. The cruel irony is that this same processing depth makes you incredibly perceptive. You're the one who notices when someone is struggling behind their smile. You pick up on group dynamics that others remain oblivious to. You understand emotional complexity that most people flatten into simple categories. But perception demands energy, and energy is finite. Modern society wasn't designed for brains like yours. It was built for extroverted ideals, open offices, networking events, constant collaboration, group activities. The message is clear. If you need solitude, something must be wrong with you. If you get tired of people, you're defective. That message is a lie. Your brain processes depth where others skim surfaces. You experience social interaction as a full-body workout while others treat it as a casual stroll. Comparing your social tolerance to someone with a fundamentally different nervous system is like comparing a sprinter's endurance to a marathon runner's and calling one of them weak. When your nervous system works this intensely, clarity isn't a luxury. It's maintenance. Without it, mental noise builds faster and drains you harder. And if you want to support your mind so it can function with more clarity and less internal interference, take a look at the brain song. It's a science-based method designed to pull the brain out of mental overload and restore real focus in just 12 minutes a day. You'll find the link in the first pinned comment. Different systems, different capacities. Both valid. The exhaustion you feel after socializing isn't antisocial behavior. It's your nervous system demanding recovery time after intense processing work. Just like an athlete needs rest after training, your brain needs silence after decoding the complex machinery of human interaction. Stop apologizing for your wiring. Start protecting it. There's a performance happening every day, and you're the lead actor who never auditioned. Most people think socializing is natural, effortless. They don't realize that for you, every interaction involves a costume change. Before you walk into a room, you're already calculating. Which version of myself do I need to be here? How much enthusiasm is appropriate? What level of interest should I fake? How long can I maintain this before the mask starts slipping? Psychologists call it social camouflaging, or masking. You're constantly adjusting your behavior to fit social expectations that feel alien to your natural state. It's not deception. It's survival in a world that punishes authenticity. The weight of this mask is invisible to everyone but you. When someone asks, "How are you?" you don't answer honestly. You deliver the expected response. "Good, thanks. You?" Even though you might be drowning in existential dread or wrestling with a problem that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. The real answer wouldn't fit the social script, so you compress your truth into acceptable small talk. Every conversation becomes a calculation. You're monitoring your facial expressions, modulating your voice, suppressing your actual reactions, and performing emotional responses that match what others expect. It's like speaking a second language you never quite mastered, functional but exhausting. And here's the part that cuts deepest. You're often good at it. People think you're fine. They see someone who navigates social situations adequately, who laughs at jokes and contributes to conversations. They have no idea about the mental gymnastics happening behind your eyes. They don't see the energy drain. They don't witness the collapse that happens when you finally get home and can drop the act. The mask has a cost that compounds over time. Research on emotional labor, the work of managing your feelings and expressions for others, shows it depletes psychological resources rapidly. Healthcare workers, service employees, and anyone in people-facing roles know this exhaustion intimately. But for you, it's not just at work. It's everywhere. Family dinners, friend hangouts, casual encounters at the grocery store. There's no clock-out time for your performance. The particularly cruel aspect of masking is that it creates distance from yourself. When you spend hours pretending to be interested, engaged, or cheerful, you lose touch with what you actually feel. The mask becomes so automatic that sometimes you forget what's underneath. You start questioning your own reactions. Is this real? Or am I performing again? And people wonder why you get tired of them. They're not seeing the real you. They're seeing the curated version you've learned to present because the authentic version makes them uncomfortable. Your genuine reactions are too intense, or too negative, or too much. So you sand down your edges, dim your light, and package yourself into something more digestible. But packaging yourself is labor. Invisible, unacknowledged labor. Nobody thanks you for making yourself smaller so they feel comfortable. Nobody recognizes the effort it takes to translate your inner world into socially acceptable output. They just expect it. And when you're too tired to perform anymore, they call you difficult. The exhaustion you feel isn't about disliking people. It's about the relentless energy required to be someone you're not, in service of social harmony you didn't agree to maintain. Some interactions demand so much masking that you leave feeling like you've been erased. You showed up, but the real you never entered the room. Just the diplomat, the performer, the version that keeps everything smooth and non-threatening. That's not connection, that's costume theater. And your soul knows the difference. It rebels against the inauthenticity. It craves spaces where the mask can come off, where you don't have to translate yourself, where your natural cadence and intensity are welcomed instead of managed. Those spaces are rare, so you protect your solitude fiercely, because it's the only place you get to exist without editing. The world calls it antisocial. You know it's self-preservation. Silence isn't empty. It's full. While others fear quiet like it's a void that needs filling, you recognize it as the richest form of communication. In silence, you hear what words obscure. You feel what performance hides. You meet yourself without the distortion of social noise. But society treats silence like failure. Dead air in conversation triggers panic. People rush to fill gaps with meaningless chatter, terrified of what might emerge if they stop talking. They mistake silence for awkwardness, instead of recognizing it as the space where truth lives. You learned early that your comfort with silence made others uncomfortable. At family dinners, when conversation lulled, you felt no need to resurrect it with forced topics. But the anxiety around the table was palpable. Someone would always crack a joke or ask a pointless question, anything to banish the quiet. The message was clear. Silence is wrong. Speech is right. Always. So you started compensating, asking questions you didn't care about, making observations that added nothing, performing interest in subjects that bored you senseless, all to prevent the silence that felt natural to you but threatened everyone else. That's when the exhaustion truly began. Not from the talking itself, but from talking without purpose. From words deployed as weapons against the quiet. From conversations that circled endlessly without landing anywhere meaningful. Your nervous system recognizes the difference between communication and noise. When words carry weight, when someone says something true instead of something easy, you're energized. Depth doesn't drain you, shallowness does. Meaningful conversation, even difficult conversation, feeds something in you that small talk starves. But most people don't speak to communicate. They speak to avoid silence. They're uncomfortable with the intimacy that quiet creates. Silence strips away pretense. It reveals whether connection exists beneath the performance. It exposes the emptiness of relationships built on habit, rather than genuine affinity. You feel this instantly. Within minutes of interaction, you know whether substance exists or whether you're trapped in verbal theater. And when it's the latter, every second stretches like hours. This isn't snobbery. It's sensory honesty. Your system rejects nutritional emptiness the same way your body rejects junk food after you've learned to eat well. Once you've tasted conversations that matter, small talk becomes intolerable. And silence? Silence becomes sanctuary. In quiet, you process the accumulated noise of social interaction. Your thoughts untangle. Your nervous system downregulates. The constant vigilance of social monitoring finally releases its grip. Silence allows your brain to shift from reception mode to reflection mode. Instead of absorbing everyone else's energy and opinions, you reconnect with your own. The internal voice that gets drowned out by social demands finally gets heard. This is why you need time alone after being around people. Not because you dislike them, but because you need to metabolize the experience. Social interaction leaves residue, emotions, energy, fragments of conversations, impressions, judgments. Silence is how you clear it. But here's what makes it complicated. Not everyone understands this need. They take your silence personally. They interpret your quiet as rejection, disinterest, or judgment. They fill your pauses with their own insecurities, projecting meaning onto your stillness that has nothing to do with you. Why are you so quiet? The question carries accusation, as if your natural state is a problem requiring explanation. You could explain. You could tell them that you're listening more deeply than they realize, that you're processing layers of conversation they're not even aware exist, that your silence contains more attention than most people's words. But that explanation requires energy you're already conserving. So you offer something simple. Just listening. And they remain confused, convinced that real engagement requires constant verbal output. They don't understand that silence is active, not passive. That listening is labor, not laziness. That sometimes the most profound response is the unspoken one. Your exhaustion with people often peaks when they refuse to honor silence, when they demand constant entertainment, reaction, validation. When your presence isn't enough, they need your performance too. That's not connection, that's extraction. True connection allows silence to exist without panic. It trusts that quiet doesn't mean disconnection. It recognizes that sometimes the most intimate moments happen without words. But those moments are rare. Most people are too frightened of silence to let it breathe. So you grow tired. Not of people exactly, but of their inability to tolerate the spaces between words. Their addiction to noise. Their fear of what silence might reveal about the emptiness underneath the performance. And you retreat. Not into loneliness, but into the fullness of quiet, where your thoughts have room to stretch, where truth doesn't need costumes, where silence finally screams louder than all the meaningless noise you've endured. Your exhaustion with people isn't random, it's intelligent. Somewhere deep in your psyche, a sophisticated filtration system is running constantly, separating genuine from fake, substance from performance, depth from decoration. This filter developed over years of social disappointment, boundary violations, and energy vampires who left you depleted. It's not cynicism, it's pattern recognition. You've learned, often painfully, that not everyone deserves access to you, that your time and energy are finite resources requiring fierce protection, that saying yes to everyone means saying no to yourself. The filter works automatically now. Within moments of meeting someone, you're assessing, is this person safe? Are they authentic? Will this interaction nourish or drain me? Do they see me? Or just the utility I provide? Most people fail the assessment, not because they're bad, but because they're operating on a different frequency. They want surface-level connection, light banter, easy rapport, nothing that challenges or demands vulnerability. Your filter rejects this immediately. Your system recognizes the mismatch and triggers the exhaustion response before you even consciously register why. This is self-preservation disguised as social fatigue. Your nervous system learned long ago that certain interactions are toxic to your well-being. People who talk endlessly about themselves but never ask about you. Those who seek your emotional labor but offer none in return. Individuals who violate boundaries with a smile, expecting you to absorb their dysfunction without protest. The filter identifies these patterns faster than your conscious mind can articulate them. Suddenly you're exhausted in someone's presence and you can't explain why. Nothing obviously wrong happened. They were friendly enough. But your body knows. The filter caught something your awareness missed. Maybe microaggressions wrapped in humor. Perhaps subtle dismissiveness disguised as concern. Or the familiar energy of someone who views you as an audience for their monologue rather than a participant in genuine exchange. Your exhaustion is information. Listen to it. But here's where it gets complicated. This filter makes you seem difficult, selective, antisocial. Because you can't just be nice and endure everyone. You can't fake enthusiasm for interactions your system has already flagged as depleting. The inauthenticity required to ignore your filter creates more exhaustion than the bad interaction itself. So you withdraw, you decline invitations, you create distance. And people notice. They interpret your boundaries as rejection, your selectivity as judgment, your self-protection as coldness. But maintaining this filter is how you survive in a world that demands constant social availability. Without it, you'd be destroyed by the accumulated weight of interactions that extract without replenishing. You'd become a dumping ground for everyone's emotional refuse, a free therapist for people who have no intention of doing their own inner work. The filter isn't cruel. It's necessary. Think about the last time you ignored it. When you overrode your gut feeling because you didn't want to seem rude. When you gave someone access despite internal alarm bells screaming warnings. How did that end? Probably exactly as your filter predicted. Energy drained, boundaries violated, regret and resentment fermenting in your chest as you kicked yourself for not trusting your instincts. Your exhaustion with people intensifies when you betray your own filter. When you allow access to those who haven't earned it. When you sacrifice your well-being on the altar of social expectation. This filter also explains why you have few close relationships. It's not that you can't connect. It's that you won't settle for connection that costs more than it gives. Quality over quantity isn't just a preference, it's survival. Most people collect relationships like trading cards, valuing number over depth. They'll maintain dozens of shallow connections, each one requiring minimal investment and providing minimal return. Your filter rejects this model entirely. You'd rather have 2 people who truly see you than 20 who know your name and nothing else. Rather have one conversation that shifts something inside you than 100 that reinforce how alone you can feel while surrounded by people. This selectivity isn't antisocial. It's wise. It's you refusing to lease out pieces of yourself to tenants who won't maintain the property. It's you understanding that your presence is valuable and shouldn't be given freely to anyone who asks. The world calls this difficult. You know its dignity. And yes, it makes you tired faster. Because every social situation involves the filter running its assessment, consuming energy in the process. By the time you've determined who's safe, what's genuine, and where the boundaries need reinforcing, you're already exhausted. But this exhaustion protects you from something worse. The slow death of self that happens when you allow everyone access. When you become so available to others that you disappear to yourself. Your filter is the guardian at the gate, ensuring that only those worthy of your inner world gain entry. Everyone else gets the lobby. And if that makes you seem antisocial, so be it. Better to be accused of coldness than to sacrifice yourself on the altar of social warmth that burns you to ashes. You're not tired of people. You're starving for real ones. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from eating empty calories disguised as nourishment. You sit through another conversation about weather, work gossip, or viral videos, and something in you withers. Not because these topics are inherently wrong, but because they're served as the entire meal when you're dying for substance. Your soul is hungry, and small talk is starvation. Most people seem satisfied with surface-level interaction. They exchange pleasantries, share memes, discuss their weekend plans, and call it connection. For them, this is enough. Maybe even preferable. Deep conversations feel heavy, demanding, risky. But for you, shallow waters feel like suffocation. You crave conversations that strip away pretense and touch something true. Discussions about fear, purpose, mortality, beauty, meaning. Exchanges where masks come off, and two human beings actually see each other without the protective coating of social performance. These moments are rare. Devastatingly rare. So you move through most interactions feeling like you're speaking a language nobody else understands. You try to steer conversations towards substance, but people reflexively redirect to safety. Someone starts sharing something real, then catches themselves and pivots to something lighter. The door to depth opens briefly, then slams shut. And you're left standing outside, hungry. This hunger explains why you can spend hours with certain people and leave energized rather than drained. It's not about introversion or extroversion. It's about depth. When you finally encounter someone willing to go beneath the surface, your nervous system relaxes. The performance stops. Real exchange becomes possible. 1 hour of genuine conversation feeds you more than a weekend of shallow socializing. But here's the painful truth. Most people don't know how to go deep. They weren't taught. They're scared of what they might find if they stop performing. They've built entire identities on staying surface level, and your invitation to depth feels like a threat. So they avoid you. Or they engage superficially and leave confused about why you seem distant. You're not distant. You're discerning. You've learned that matching energy to the person in front of you is essential. If someone offers surface, you give surface back. Not out of judgment, but because offering depth to someone who can't receive it is painful for both of you. It's like trying to have a profound conversation while someone's scrolling their phone. Technically they're present, but the part of them that could meet you in the deep isn't available. This creates the illusion that you're the problem, that you're too intense, too serious, too much. But intensity isn't the issue. Mismatch is. You're not too deep for people. You're deep for the wrong people. And rather than compromising your nature to fit their capacity, you withdraw. You'd rather be alone than pretend that shallow waters satisfy the hunger in you. This hunger also makes you impatient with wasted time. You can feel it immediately when a conversation is circling without landing, when words are being used to fill space rather than create meaning, when someone is talking at you instead of with you. Your tolerance for this approaches zero, not because you're cruel, but because life is short and you're done pretending that empty exchanges constitute connection. People interpret this impatience as rudeness. They don't understand that what they're calling conversation feels to you like watching paint dry. You're not being difficult. You're protecting your life force from slow leakage. But the hunger for depth comes with loneliness. Because even when you're surrounded by people, if none of them can meet you where you actually live, you're alone. Maybe more alone than if you'd stayed home, because proximity without connection is its own special hell. You've experienced it, sitting at a table full of people, laughter and chatter swirling around you, and feeling profoundly isolated. Not because you're antisocial, but because you're the only one who seems to notice that nobody's actually saying anything. The loneliness of depth in a shallow world is its own kind of exhaustion. You get tired of translating yourself into simpler terms, of watching your real thoughts die in your throat because you know they won't land, of feeling like an alien who forgot how to speak the native language of small talk and casual connection. So you stop trying. You conserve your depth for the rare souls who can hold it. And everyone else gets the edited version, the safe version, the version that doesn't ask anything of them. This isn't antisocial. It's self-preservation in a world that mistakes depth for dysfunction. Your hunger for meaningful connection isn't a flaw. It's a compass pointing you toward what's real. The exhaustion you feel in shallow spaces is your soul's way of saying, this isn't nourishing you. Find something better. And sometimes, something better is solitude. Because at least in silence, you're not pretending that emptiness is fullness. You're not force-feeding yourself interactions that leave you hungrier than you started. Your exhaustion is wisdom. It's your system knowing the difference between connection and its cheap imitation. Trust it. Here's what breaks the whole conversation open. You've discovered something most people spend their lives avoiding. Solitude isn't exile. It's homecoming. Society conflates being alone with being lonely because most people are terrified of their own company. They need constant external stimulation to avoid confronting what lives inside them. Silence feels threatening. Alone time triggers anxiety. So they assume everyone else must feel the same way. But you don't. You've learned that solitude is where you return to yourself after the world has pulled you in 1,000 directions. It's where the noise stops and clarity emerges. Where you can finally hear your own thoughts without competing against everyone else's opinions, needs, and expectations. This isn't loneliness. It's liberation. Loneliness is wanting connection and lacking it. Solitude is choosing your own company and finding it sufficient. The difference is everything. When you cancel plans to stay home, you're not avoiding people because you're sad or broken. You're choosing restoration over depletion. You're prioritizing your well-being over social obligation. You're recognizing that your energy is precious, and spending it unwisely has consequences. But people don't see it that way. They see someone declining invitations and assume something's wrong. They worry. They push. They frame your solitude as a problem requiring intervention, a symptom requiring treatment. What they don't understand is that for you, solitude is medicine, not malady. It's where your overstimulated nervous system finally downregulates. Where the mask comes off and you remember what your actual face feels like. Where you process the accumulated emotional data of social interaction without new input flooding the system. You're not hiding from life in solitude. You're restoring your capacity to engage with it. There's a specific kind of peace that only alone time provides. The freedom to move through your space at your own rhythm. To eat when hungry without coordinating schedules. To think without interruption. To feel without performing those feelings for an audience. This peace is addictive in the healthiest way. Once you've tasted it, you protect it fiercely. And that protection looks like antisocial behavior to people who've never experienced solitude as anything other than punishment or isolation. They don't understand that you can be perfectly happy sitting in silence, reading, thinking, creating, or doing nothing at all. That you don't need constant entertainment or companionship to feel complete. That you're not waiting to be rescued from yourself. Your relationship with solitude threatens their worldview. Because if you're genuinely content alone, it challenges the narrative that humans require constant social connection to thrive. It suggests that maybe all the frantic socializing and desperate networking and exhausting people-pleasing isn't actually necessary for a good life. Maybe there's another way, a quieter way, a more intentional way. This is why your exhaustion with people doesn't worry you the way it worries them. You've discovered that being alone replenishes what social interaction depletes. You've learned to trust your own company. You've built a life that doesn't require constant external validation to feel worthwhile. That's not antisocial. That's evolved. It means you engage with people from wholeness rather than need. You connect because you choose to, not because you're desperate for any interaction to stave off loneliness. Your relationships become higher quality because they're not propping up an empty sense of self. You bring your full self to connection because you've spent time with that self in solitude. You know who you are when nobody's watching. You've met yourself in the quiet and made peace with what you found there. Most people haven't done this work. They're strangers to themselves, which is why they're so uncomfortable alone. But you? You're friends with your solitude. And that friendship is one of the most important relationships you'll ever have. It's the foundation that allows you to be selective about other relationships. You don't need to cling to connections that harm you because you're not afraid of being alone. You can walk away from what doesn't serve you because solitude isn't the punishment they think it is. This is power. Quiet power, but power nonetheless. When you're not desperate for social connection, you can't be manipulated by the threat of isolation. When you enjoy your own company, other people's approval becomes less essential. When solitude feels like home, you don't have to perform to secure a place to belong. You already belong, to yourself. And that's the secret that makes you seem antisocial to those who haven't learned it yet. You've found the one person you'll spend your entire life with, yourself. And you've decided that relationship is worth investing in. The exhaustion you feel with people isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's your system's way of protecting your relationship with solitude, of ensuring you don't sacrifice your inner peace for social acceptance, of reminding you that not all connection is created equal. Some interactions nourish, some deplete, and some are neutral noise that could be replaced with silence without any real loss. Your exhaustion helps you distinguish between them. So when you need to retreat, retreat. When you need silence, claim it. When you need solitude, choose it without guilt or explanation. Because alone doesn't mean lonely. It means you've learned what most people spend lifetimes avoiding, that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. And maintaining that relationship requires protecting it from the noise, the performance, the shallow exchanges that masquerade as connection. Your exhaustion with people isn't antisocial. It's you loving yourself enough to give yourself what you actually need: space to breathe, silence to think, and solitude to remember who you are beneath all the masks. That's not psychology as pathology. That's psychology as wisdom.